Hi, it's Celia in the Sonic Cathedral on the record with 2/5 of the performing band of Pearl and the Oysters. It's good to meet you guys. Juju, Jojo?
Hi, yeah, good to meet you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And actually, just the way it worked out after your show in Nashville, you're sort of towards the tail end of your tour, but your record is new, like new, fresh. They've been performing songs. You get 2 off the new one and then 1 off Coast to Coast. But really, back to back, like a lot of music you've put out in the last, 18 months or so.
That's correct, yes, a lot.
We actually always had an album in advance, and now we're finally caught up.
Oh.
So, we're starting from scratch for the new one.
Oh, so you had these extras like around Coast to Coast era. You had this Planet Pearl almost ready to go?
Not exactly, but we had a few songs ready. But right now we have, we're caught up.
Blank slate.
Yeah, blank slate.
Well, tell me how this one came to be then, because I think this is your second release since you've been planted in California. Is that right? So how has your new digs maybe influenced your sound as you've sort of sunk into life in California?
I guess the LA scene is so, ever inspiring. There's so many people, musicians that we love and respect, and for some, hang out with, and so that process and being able to also be in the Stone's Throw studio and get a band together and actually track in the way that I think bands should track always, which is, doing the rhythm section live. So this, I guess, having access to that and being able to do that logistically has influenced the sound of the new record quite a bit, I would say, or the process at least, and so therefore the sound of it.
That was new for you for this record.
That was new as a sort of systematic process, because before then we had, let's be very honest, less money and also less opportunities to be in studios and professional studios, so we'd keep rhythm section, live tracking to a minimum. And those were always special occasions whenever we could do that. But for the most part, we were a bedroom pop act. So, so to speak. Yeah. So it's kind of,
Yeah. Any reflections from recording?
Yeah, I mean, the recording and just I'd say the music scene kind of evolving. When we arrived in the US, we realized that jazz wasn't, seen as like this lame, outdated music like it was in France, where we come from at the time, and I feel that little by little we indulged into like getting our jazz side out more and more. And then of course in LA with all the incredible players that are around, it makes sense. It's like it came together for this album. I think that's that was written actually mostly on the road because we've been traveling so much, but also very LA because, we have studio musician in this LA studio. I think being in LA definitely influenced the sound of the album. And
it sounds like, more people, more players, a little more time that came with a little more money to be able to ease into it and work things out in studio. Yeah. Well, and I was watching you even for this session work things out on stage. Here you are at the tail end of your tour, and I'm like, are songs still open to negotiation and interpretation every night?
Always. I'm very I'm a perfectionist, and I tend to do that and throw curveballs at my bandmates, and I apologize to them right now. But it's always in a state of becoming. I feel like music, especially in our setting, which has no tracks, no nothing. It's all played live by musicians. So we can afford to kind of tinker and keep working on arrangements as we go. And even towards the tail end of the tour, there's things that are still up for debate or could be improved or just could be different. And sometimes you want to try different things. And I think every night we have these conversations, sometimes during sound check. And very malleable.
That seems fun to me. Not like stressful, but I'm not on stage with you. But it seems fun to be still excited when a chord is struck a different way and be like, let's keep it that way.
Yeah, I mean, this I guess playing those songs from Planet Pearl is kind of new, even though we've been on tour for a few weeks now. But there's still, it's still a pretty fresh set for us. So there's a few modifications too that we can bring to the live versions of the songs.
It's so interesting that you wrote a lot of this while touring because I see so much experimentation just with your toys and your sounds. And so how much of that is like you have a melody line and you're like, I like where this is going. And then you have to wait a little bit to get to a place where you can jam it out and figure out how you would want it on record. How much of that was post-tour?
Well, thankfully, we have a lot of little toys at home. So pretty quickly we can, as soon as we're back in LA, we can play around with the ideas we have, and it's just a work in progress. Jojo often composes by just like being on a keyboard and noodling and getting songs, chord progressions first, and then the melodies come out. And the lyrics were written actually all in a bulk, close to when the recording was done, like really at last minute, I guess, for some of the songs. But yeah, I mean, we're surrounded by music all the time, whether it's on tour or at home, and it just, like being a musician these days, there's like the visual world that's really important, seeing the country, touring. It's just like, there's a lot to feed off to make new music and create, and thankfully we're lucky enough to be able to work on those songs at home and record some, even out of the studio. So
yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to add is my friend in Minneapolis was like, "Oh, I can tell you've been touring a lot because all these songs are about being in a car," and I didn't even realize. And it's funny that we wrote a lot of lyrics. Like I remember specifically writing "Cruise Control" on like during sound check. Basically, like the chords came kind of during sound check, and we were jamming with the band. I can't remember if it was Orange County or somewhere in California, but we actually have, because we were recording that show, we have like this sort of first few moments of like the song coming to be, and it's interesting. But yeah, it's funny that all these songs that first sort of emerged from just being on the road and jamming during sound check eventually came to be about being on the road. And this sort of state of transience.
I mean, you're saying it's like a lot of it's earthbound and being inspired by what you're seeing, what you're hearing, but then you name it Planet Bro because there's still a lot of spacey elements, and sort of how do you balance the sounds? You mentioned jazz, like maybe not feeling as appreciated in modern times in France, and then you move here and people are like, yeah, give me that. How do you balance the old sounds and the new, more futuristic, spacey sounding stuff to be like, yeah, that's just right in a balance on a song?
It's hard to say. I think we always leaned into the space age textures and electronics because that's the stuff that for us made up the sort of sonic universe of the band from very early on. And I think that we're now only starting to, it doesn't maybe feel like it, but tame that aspect a little bit and make it more of a thoughtful part of the arrangements and not trying to be the band with all the bleeps like we used to. But it's definitely a big part of what we do. And like finding the balance is something that I think is going to be very subjective and subjective as a sort of like hive mind unit that we have with Juliet, because we have this almost like telepathic thing going with music and styles, and I know Juliet and I often agree on when to stop with the sort of barrage of electronics and typically like let the song breathe with like some more conventional arranging.
Yeah, well, I guess we didn't, invent anything new. Like, when at the beginning of like electronic music, in the very beginning, there was like a coexisting like orchestral music and jazz orchestras and the new like electronic discoveries and instruments like the theremin or just all those first synths that existed, and there are incredible records of jazz. I'm thinking of that record Moongas, just like jazz songs with bleeps and bloops everywhere, and just this. I mean, this is for me it's my dream music. I just adore it, and so Yeah, it was important for us to make it dense though. Like we did want to bring that space agey sound to our music from the very first album, and we wanted to push it where it got a little uncomfortable. That was kind of our plan, and then yeah, we tamed it down a little, but it's still pretty.
Yeah, what I noticed is like, of course, there's tons of buttons and pedals and things, but it's really a lot of knob turning, like just leaning in and then backing out of it.
It's so
is why it's
fun.
like flirting with space, but not staying in space. You know, you're very grounded. Okay, we'll speak to, because you formed, you know, your old friends, right? Old friends and collaborators, so like high school times. Can you name something for those of us landlocked, like in Nashville, people idolize and dream about living, you know, in Paris or in LA? You've done both. What's something truly, like in your heart, like really charming about either city based on the times you've lived there?
Should we each pick one city?
Whatever, however you want to do it. Understand the assignment.
Well, for LA, it's very simple to me. It's the nature is incredible. It just looks, it looks like nothing else that I know, and it invites contemplation and sort of poetry, and it's definitely threatened by, you know, we have to be careful with man-made climate change and things like that. Obviously, I'm not trying to get there too much, but LA is part of this greater, you know, California ecosystem that is threatened by fires and things like that, and even floods lately. But it's just a gorgeous, super inspiring site geographically, like with all the nature, all the different things. You have the mountains, you have the sea, obviously, and it can be quite gorgeous. It's a complicated city because it can also be awful, and but yeah, and for Paris, for me, well, I don't know. I guess growing up in Paris, I didn't realize it, but leaving it and coming back, everything is eye candy. It's just amazing. The architecture, and it's funny to not notice when you were brought up in such an environment, but once you leave and you come back, you realize that it is kind of a jewel, and so that's my take. And also the city being, you know, walkable, I guess, like, which is something that in America is kind of rare still. I mean,
You're right.
yeah.
We know all too well.
And so
We're jealous.
I end up just walking around as much as I can whenever I'm back.
Yeah, that's our plan for the day. Usually is just walk. But yeah, about Paris and about walkability and everything, I think, I mean, we're both very sensitive to like our environments, but for me, being in an anonymous city that is human size is kind of like the perfect combo for, you know, feeling like just a balanced human, which I'm not feeling in Los Angeles at all. But
Too big?
It's too big, yeah. And having to drive everywhere, you know, it's like one step to being robots, you know. But yeah, just public space, like public money being spent to spaces to just chill in the city. I don't know. I think it's very necessary for people just to live together, and I miss that a lot. And I think it's super charming, and yeah, and then but LA just has the richest music scene. You know, it's incredible. We could go to a show every night, and that's kind of what we do sometimes. And the people there are lovely. They're, you know, ready to collab. There's just a lot of you know, new things coming out, and it's really exciting. People understand what we go through because they do it too. And just, yeah, the music community is incredible.
It's awesome in a city that's that big that you have found a community. It sounds like you keep making friends and collaborators. Did that lend to doing the remixes of Coast to Coast songs?
Yes, I mean, since we're in America, we've been meeting people and you know, connecting, and
the byproduct of being on the road so much. You meet tons of people, and some have become really great friends over the years. So yeah, it's again the remix was part of that. Also, is trying to bring some of these people together in a project around, you know, reworking some of these songs. And of course, Stone's Throw having so many incredible musicians on their roster, and us being friends with some of them facilitated that. So
it's an easy ask and easy yes.
yeah, exactly.
Well, love these tunes. Love so much to play them on the radio. Love watching you perform them. I was smiling watching, but you were smiling too. Clearly, there's a lot of joy in this music you're making. So thanks for making it and bringing it to Nashville. And we'll catch you next time around.
We love Nashville and we love public radio. And thank you for having us. Really,
Thank you for saying that. Take care, you guys.
Thank you.